All right, so everybody knows we got big game, not a big game, of course, coming up on today's show. But we got a lot of action this weekend, and a lot of action means we need to make a lot of money. There's lots of opportunities for money. And joining us here, Joe Fortenbaugh, ESPN Radio. Obviously, you hear him in the afternoon. Carlin versus Joe. Okay, I was going to say Joe versus Carlin. Carlin versus Joe in the afternoons on ESPN. I love hearing you guys. First of all, Joe, how did you come up with the name Carlin versus Joe as opposed to just, regular radio, Carlin and Joe? How did you come up with the name?
Well, first of all, great move correcting yourself on the Joe versus Carlin, the Carlin versus Joe, because mistakes in the radio industry, we are all very thin-skinned. Every one of us very thin-skinned. The slightest hint of something making us not look what we think we are, we will all crumble. So very nicely done there. Jokes aside, we were kicking around ideas, right? Like eventually a show gets named in terms of you guys are going to work together. Now we need a name. Well, Fortenbaugh is not really appealing from a radio imaging standpoint. And as we started to just try to figure out which direction we wanted to go, Carlin versus Joe got thrown out there, like something different, right? Mm-hmm. Every show, and I'm not going to knock any of them, but every show is just someone's name or someone and someone. So let's just do something a little bit different. We're not going to end the world. We're not going to break down barriers in the industry. Let's just try something different. So that's what we did. It's kind of catchy. I think it sounds okay. It's a little different.
No, I like it. But then do you feel the need to be versing him? Like, do you feel the need to never agree?
So here's the irony of this. We agree way more than we should. Like, that's one of the talking points we have at some of these meetings. It's like, do we think we're agreeing on too many topics? Right. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe we are, but it's also authentic, right? We're not forcing it for the sake of forcing it. So it was funny because I think we're both two loud guys, two more brash Northeast type personalities. I think we thought at first we'd go head to head a lot more. And then it turns out we see a lot of things the same way. So it's been about finding some nuance in the discussion so that, yeah, it's okay to agree. Let's just find different reasons for why we agree. Let's make that side of the conversation more robust. So the great irony is that we square off less than we think. We actually had a pretty good one yesterday about Josh Allen. And at the end, Carlin looks at me. He's like, are we okay? Are we okay? Did we go too far? Is this a little too heated? And I was like, no, it's not too heated. We're just so used to freaking agreeing with each other that we finally disagreed. It's all good. We're having a good time.
Make sure you listen, Carlin versus Joe, every afternoon, ESPN Radio. Joe is one of the guys I have co-hosted with one time with you, which I enjoyed very much. Okay, but of course, Joe is now on in the afternoons with Chris Carlin, who we also like very much. So I want to get some plays from you, okay? ESPN Bet, Daily Line. It's all very big now. So I want to get some NFL plays from you for this weekend. But first, I do want to ask you, you recently moved over to East Coast from Vegas. You were a Vegas guy. And of course, yesterday we had the inaugural semifinals for the NBA in-season tournament in Vegas. Have you been in on the in-season tournament? Have you liked it?
I have. Because you know what? I'm all for any industry. I'm all for any family, any individual trying something new. Experiment. Do not get stuck in your ways. Do not think this is it. We've done it this way forever. Let's continue to do it this way. I like the fact that the NBA tried something different. If it ends up failing and people don't like it, that's okay. Just, continue to tinker. Continue to try to improve the product. People will let you know if it's not going to work. So in this instance, I liked it because as a gambler, it gave me an additional reason to get involved from a futures perspective. Spoiler, I like Boston 8-1. That blew up in my face. But I really enjoyed watching. I can't even remember who it was. The Pacer game the other night that got them not the semifinal game, but the one where everyone was just going nuts in Indiana.
The Celtics, yeah,
the one that blew up my bet, the Celtics. That was such a good game, and it was such a great atmosphere. And I love the fact that LeBron has taken this serious because I think that's very important for the NBA. If the face of the NBA makes it a point that it's serious, I think everyone else will fall in line. I love the fact that last night, in my opinion, was the biggest game of Zion Williamson's career. It might sound crazy, but it's the first time he played a meaningful game and he flopped. So now we get to discuss that. And then on top of it, it's given us a great story in the Indiana Pacers. So I have very much enjoyed this because you can't complain about load management and then get mad that they try to make games like this more meaningful. I love how LeBron's handled it, to be honest.
I've loved it. The one part that I think was a little bit of a letdown last night, and I don't know how they fix it, Joe, is like you mentioned, the crowds, even in the match play games, and especially the quarterfinal games where there was a home team, the crowds have been fantastic. But then when you get to the Final Four in Vegas, and it's just 2 days out, you find out. I don't know that Pacer fans and Buck fans, Pelican fans, they're checking airline tickets and hotel prices, and they're flying out to support their team in the in-season tournament. So the crowd was a letdown, and I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, because you don't want to move these games to, okay, well, Indiana had the better point differential or whatever, so they get to host. Like, you don't want to do that, because this is something different. So I like the idea of going neutral site. But you're right, this isn't the Final Four. Kentucky's not traveling to New Orleans with that fan base because they're in the Final Four. It's December. You probably just traveled for Thanksgiving. You probably have travel coming up for Christmas and the holiday season. You're not going to travel in the middle of that to go watch your beloved Philadelphia 76ers play in the in-season tournament. Yep. So maybe it's just something we have to accept on that front, which I can understand, because we're going to be moving towards having a franchise in Las Vegas. So I think this is part of that equation, bringing more basketball to Las Vegas, getting the fans more into it in Las Vegas, and then eventually having a team in Las Vegas.
All right, so let's get to some plays for Sunday. I got to make some money. We got to pay this mortgage somehow, Joe. So I'm going to ask you a couple of the big games here for Sunday, and then you give me a couple of your best plays.
Okay.
All right. So Bills Chiefs, obviously as Dolphin fans, that game means a lot to us. The Dolphins are if the Bills lose this game, the Dolphins are a game away from clinching the AFC East. And then you got the Kansas City Chiefs, who the Dolphins don't have the tiebreak with. So if we can go up 2 on them if they lose, that would be great. So I think the Dolphin fan is actually rooting for a Bills win here, because we play the Bills again, so we take care of that ourselves. What do you like, Bills and Chiefs? It looks like the Chiefs are a 1-point favorite right now.
I like 2 bets in this game. I like the Bills. You can take the point if you want. You'd bet them on the money line as well. I think they win the game outright. So if you want the point and a half, so be it. I can understand that. Or if you want a little bit of a better payout, take the Bills. Situationally, love the spot for the Bills. They're off the bye week, so they've had 2 weeks to get ready for the game. Kansas City, back-to-back road games, punctuated last week, Sunday night at Lambeau Field. This offense is not what we remember it. They've topped 21 points only 2 times in the last 7 games. They just don't have that pop anymore. And I think the Bills actually bring a more high upside offense to the table in this game. Kansas City's defense has been very good, but they struggle against the run. And that's what leads me in the play number 2. Josh Allen's rushing yards over. I give it very generally because I think it's somewhere around 35. I'm playing the alt line. The alt line's 44.5. It's plus 165 to the over, which means a $100 bet would return 165 in profit, plus 165. Josh Allen, notorious for running more in big games that matter. But that's not how they factor this line. This line is built on an aggregate of data, one of which is, what is the average throughout his career? Well, there's a lot of games that are somewhat meaningless or blowouts where he doesn't run much, and that factors in. This is not one of those games. If you look at the big games throughout his career, he runs a lot more, and he's going to have an opportunity to do that against his Kansas City defense. So I would play the Bills, and I'd also play Josh Allen over rushing yards.
Sunday Night Football, Eagles, Cowboys, monster game. Cowboys got a chance at essentially, tying for first in the NFC East, but maybe also first overall in the NFC at some point down the road. What do we like there?
So I'm an Eagle fan. I'll be the first to admit that. But I bet against them last week and won, and I'm going to bet against them again this week and hopefully win. And again, this is a situational handicap here. Cowboys have 10 days to get ready for this game. Sound familiar? Niners had 10 days to get ready for that game last week and throttled the Eagles. Not the same team, not the exact same situation, but this is important with handicapping. Understanding in the NBA when someone's playing their 4th game in 6 nights and it's the second half of a back-to-back, or it's the 4th game of a 4-game road trip. Those spots can be advantageous to bet against those teams, right? So Dallas has 10 days to get ready. And meanwhile, here's Philadelphia. They just played on a Monday night against Kansas City, followed by an overtime game against Buffalo, 92 snaps in that game, most of any game this season. Then they had to play the Niners. Now, it's important to note this Niner game, because if you go back to the start of last season, 49ers opponents the week after playing the 49ers are 7-20 straight up. They're 9-16-2 against the spread. It's a physical game that takes a lot out of you. I don't trust the Philly defense. Hurts is banged up. I would play the Cowboys -3.5.
And you got a couple others maybe that you love on Sunday?
Yeah. Oh, I got a list. This is the ZASLOW list right
all
here.
All right.
Specifically for this show. I'm going to rip through them with some key notes. Okay. Number one, Bears Lions under 43. This plays into something a lot of people need to focus on this weekend. Fantasy, daily fantasy gambling. A lot of bad weather games this weekend. Check the wind. When the wind is up around 20 mile an hour, that can wreak havoc on a passing game. Weather's going to be bad in Chicago. Under 43 is the play. Jared Goff throughout his career plays very poorly outdoors in bad weather. People go, oh, it's Detroit. Detroit's an indoor stadium. They're not an outdoor team. They go outdoors, and Goff throughout his career struggled there. So I'd play under 43 points. I'd also play Justin Fields over rushing yards. There's an alternate line, 73.5. It's +140 to the over. I'd bet that as well. This Lion defense isn't very good. He's going to run quite a bit in this game. Ravens -7.5 over the Rams. I think they just hammered the Rams in this game. Games in Baltimore. Ravens have had 2 weeks to get ready. They're off their bye week. They're chasing down that 1 seed. The Rams have been very good this year, better than expected. But I think because of some of these wins they put together, they're starting to get a little overvalued. They're still not that great. I think this defense is going to feast on Matthew Stafford, so I'd lay the 7.5. Carolina +5 over the Saints. Ugly pick. But should the Saints be laying 5 points against anybody? Let's look at it like this. I think they've been mispriced all year. They've been favored in 9 of 12 games. They stink, and they've been favored in 9 of 12 games. They've covered 2 spreads all year. So I'll take Carolina +5. Speaking about bad weather, Jets game should have bad weather. Against the Texans, totals 33. I'd go under there. Zach Wilson back at quarterback. Not exactly inspiring a lot of confidence. I gave you Dallas. I gave you the Bills. For fun, I am going to have a couple bucks on the over in Army-Navy. Under hit 16 years in a row until last year, went over because of overtime and some fluky stuff late. This total's 27.5. It's almost like they're daring me. So I'll go ahead and put a couple bucks on the over. And then for anyone who likes boxing, Saturday night, Devin Haney is fighting Regis Prograis in San Francisco. Haney by decision is -200. I like that. But if you don't want to lay the 200, there's another fight in Florida, Robesi Ramirez. He's -250 to win by stoppage, KO, TKO, DQ. Parlay those together, and it's +110. So it's DAZN is hosting the Devin Haney fight, Haney by decision, and then ESPN has got the Robesi Ramirez fight, Ramirez by stoppage. Parlay them together, it's +110.
There you go. And I'll ask you real quick. I mean, it's not this weekend, but Monday Night Dolphins. Do you feel any kind of way? They're favored by almost 2 touchdowns.
So that's where it gets interesting because Miami this year has been very good to me in some key spots. I remember them covering that Giants game. They played like crap in that Giants game, right? They only had the ball for like 23 minutes, still covered the spread. Like that's the thing about Miami. They can hit you from all over the place. So I haven't found a whole lot of spots to bet against them. Against more elite defenses that can slow them down, that's where you start to find the value. Because if that offense can't be as explosive, like if you can't be worried about Miami in a game where they could be in a 45-35 shootout. Like that plays to their nature. But if they have to get down and dirty and gritty, that's where there's opportunity to bet against them because if they can't be as explosive, they're still being priced as an explosive team. So I'd be more inclined to back the Dolphins in spots like this, Tyreek Hill anytime touchdown, things of that nature, because this looks like a spot where they can hang a number.
Joe, excellent job. Good stuff. Tell everybody all the ways that they could hear you.
Carlin versus Joe, noon to 3 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Radio. And then we just rebranded Daily Wager to ESPN Bet Live. It's on ESPN2. We're all over the map, right? Thursdays and Fridays, we're on 6 p.m. Eastern, ESPN2. Saturday mornings, we're usually on 11 a.m. Eastern. Sunday mornings to get you ready for the NFL, we're sitting there at, I believe it's 9 a.m. Eastern. And then Mondays, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's like, yeah, it should be easy to build an audience when it's a different time every single day. But we're all over the place, but it's been a lot of fun. The rebrand has been going well. So I appreciate, Zaz, you having me on because we only did get to work together that one time, but having never met each other, having never worked together, that was a fun show. That speaks to your competence as a radio host. I appreciated working with you that day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you, Joe. Have fun this weekend and welcome to the East Coast. East Coast, best coast. East Coast, best coast.
And Monday night game started 8:30. I can't stay up that late. I go to bed by 9.
Thank you, Joe. Take it easy, man.